Well, here we are. Good morning, everybody.
Good
Episode
morning.
19.
19.
Woohoo!
Here we go.
19. And our previous sermon was titled A Sober Reality.
Yeah.
Yep. Here we are in our Overflow podcast. And join next to me. I'm Andy, by the way. Hi. Great to see all you guys.
I'm Jeff.
Jeff over here, Pastor Jeff Waterman, and he was our teaching pastor this past Sunday, where we have been continuing in our sermon series called In His Grip as we are working through the letter of Jude.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's a short letter, one of the books of the Bible. It's only, 25? 25 verses, so pretty quick.
Good memory.
Yeah, and a lot of the books of the Bible, like people will spend months, I feel like, working through, I don't know, Galatians or reading through some of these books or letters and with kind of forgetting, hey, this is a letter and it was meant to be like read at one sitting period.
Yeah.
A letter.
Yeah. And we're kind of doing that too, right? Like we're going through 3 or 4 verses and you forget, it was a letter and they read it in one setting.
Yeah, and even back in the Old Testament when I think it was Zechariah perhaps, as they're like rebuilding the wall, and he goes and he stands and he reads the entirety of like the Torah or the Pentateuch, you know, and in a day.
We freak out when worship goes beyond an hour and 15.
Yeah,
it probably took days to
morning to night. Yeah, for real. So here we are once again, though, and this is episode 19. Wow, so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. We started this, 18 weeks ago or whatever, and we're still doing it. So, hey, this is how people get to 200 and 300 and all those things. We got a long way to go, but here we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome stuff. And so your sermon this past Sunday, it was Jude's clear presentation of false teachers provides 2 action steps for us to live life from within God's grip.
Right.
Yeah. And the 2 points here were practicing perception as well as developing discretion.
Correct.
I think where we want to land on today's podcast, however, this episode, is really on how to make these things work.
Right.
We can certainly learn a lot about, the knowledge that's within the Bible. It's unsearchable. There's depth you can't ever reach you can't plumb the depths of it. And so people can say, wow, that really looks nice and all that, and we can learn a lot, but how do we really live this thing out?
How does it work? Right?
Yeah. How does that work in real life?
Yeah. I think that's a great place to land, particularly with this section, because that whole concept of practice perception, right? Those words were chosen on purpose because we all can see what's happening around us. I mean, it's kind of what happens in a newscast or what happens in an editorial or what happens on a podcast, right? We can observe and go, oh, wow, that's screwed up. You know,
Yeah.
People are pretty easily attentive to the things that don't seem right. They might not be able to articulate what's right, but they go, I perceive something's not exactly right with this thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think what Jude is doing, he says, look, just be aware, right? The idea of perception is just awareness. Be aware of what's happening. There's competing messages. One is leading you someplace. That's the message of God. He's leading you to an abundant life.
Yeah.
The other one is leading you nowhere. And he uses interesting illustrations, right? Wandering stars, fruitless trees. And hey, perceive what is the outcome of this message you're hearing. Is what it's, don't look at necessarily what it promises. Look at what it actually delivers.
Yeah. And that's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think it's a call to critical thinking. It's like, all right, is what you're telling me match what happens?
Yeah. Very good. And absolutely. So yeah, these metaphors or analogies of waterless clouds or shepherds feeding themselves, wandering stars. I like that one the most, I think, because I can envision these are boat community people, and they're out there they're fishing. That's how they make their living. That's where they get their food from. They live off the Mediterranean Sea, a lot of them. And they're navigating by the stars a lot of the times. But if you have a star that's moving, how are you going to navigate? You're going to be misled.
Right.
So you're saying that right now. The both are leading somewhere. You have this most wise being, a Father that loves you, and he is the most loving and the most good, right? All of these things are just for the best, and he's leading you in some direction. or you have the ones that are misleading you in a totally different direction.
Right.
And we need to be aware. We need to actually like practice this perception of where's the outcome of this.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, because you're a little younger than I am, but do you remember when GPS first came out? You got the little thing on
Yeah.
the dashboard or whatever,
Yeah,
and you had to actually download the map.
Right,
You had
right.
you had to do that. So
Yeah.
then, as roads are being constructed,
Oh boy.
right, it's changing,
Yeah.
and so I remember my wife. She's like, I don't trust that thing because it would lead them into a middle of a field or
Right.
something.
There
right?
was a road here, and then
Or there's a road planned, so they
Oh,
put,
yeah.
but it hasn't been built yet, or whatever. And she's like, "This thing is worthless. It takes me nowhere." And well, now
yeah.
new GPS is a lot better, and it's a lot more, I guess, reliable. But back in the day, yeah, it felt like a wandering star. Like that's where I want to go, but I can't get there because there's no road to get
Right.
there or whatever. So,
Right.
yeah, it's the wandering star is an interesting analogy.
Yeah, yeah. And
I kind of liked. Resonated with the sea foam.
Oh, yeah.
that,
Of
that
course.
just flows up.
yeah, yucky. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so just to clarify for anybody who isn't aware of what we're talking about with that, the sea foam, the hidden reefs, no, what was this part exactly? Wild waves of the sea casting up the foam of their own shame.
Right.
That is pretty interesting. I personally, I got to be honest, I don't quite understand the casting up the foam of their own shame. I'm not exactly sure, but it's like the foam, I could see that as, okay, so as the waves are going in and out from the shore and they're just bubbling there and kind of getting stuck there and being heated by the sun all day long and all the little seaweed, and it smells and it kind of gets yellow and orange sometimes, and it's like, what is even going on with this?
gross.
You got to kind of either jump over that or walk through it to get into the good waters.
Right.
But so maybe their own shame is like all this just like putricity. Is that even a word?
It is now.
Yeah, but it's putrid.
It's
right?
gross,
Yeah.
right? It's all the guck. What's happening is it's just all their guck is coming to the surface.
Exactly.
And it's
you
there
go.
for everyone to see.
Yeah.
But sometimes we see all the guck come up to the surface and we go, well, it's really not that bad. No, it really is that bad.
Yeah.
Just perceive it. Call
Yeah.
it what it is. Recognize it. Be aware of it.
That's
Don't be
good.
afraid to say, that's not good.
Right.
It's okay. You're not, again, one of the things we said is discernment does not equal discrimination, right? We're so in our
Right.
culture worried about, are we going to discriminate against this person or that person, this group or that group? And so we tend to not say anything, even
Mhm.
though we perceive
Yeah.
that something is amiss, that maybe the message isn't right, isn't consistent.
Hmm.
So I don't believe that when we say, hey, that's a wrong message, or that's a bad message, or that's a wrong or bad activity or action, I'm not saying that person is bad. I'm not discriminating against that person. What I'm saying is that particular message is not helpful.
Yeah. People are so taken aback by confrontation like that when somebody says in love or in kindness, like, hey, that's not exactly correct. I have often heard people be like, oh, you're being mean to me right now.
Right.
I think that's a
Right.
little weak.
Or stop yelling at me.
Yeah. Right. Give me a break. Like,
I'm not yelling at
I'll
you.
show
I'm
you
just-
some yelling. No, right. No,
I can
but-
yell. But yeah, it's this idea that any type of perceiving or acknowledging that, hey, this message isn't positive. This
Yeah.
what this message is promising, it is not delivering.
Mm-hmm.
And we can apply that across the board. There's so many competing messages that are coming our way that if we just step back a minute and say, okay, but is it delivering what it promises?
Correct. What is the outcome of this? And after practicing this particular thing that they're saying you should do, compelling you to do whatever, is the fruit of that ultimately good, or is it ruining my life?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before I step into it, is it ultimately good for everybody else that's practicing it, or is it ruining their life?
Yeah.
If it's ruining their life, probably going to ruin my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe not ruin, but definitely negatively affected.
Diminish. Right. Yeah. Ooh. So we're called to be aware, and that these people they are misguiding people. I like how we can point out the type of people, we're definitely given a list, like a checklist. Well, these are grumblers, these are malcontents, these are fault finders, these are people that are following their own sinful desires. They are
Right.
loudmouth boasters, very prideful, trying to gain advantage. So we have some pretty clear checklists of saying,
Mm-hmm.
okay, these are things to look out for, and these are the outflows of those things. So again, these are the fruit of the actions. And Jesus says, you will know the people, you will know them by their fruit.
Right.
And so if they're either fruitless, like a fruitless tree in late autumn, so that's already like older and it's getting, dying, and then it's uprooted because it doesn't have a foundation. It's
Right.
not rooted into truth or goodness or love. So it's uprooted. It's dead. It's dead. It's and on the fruit, not bearing any good fruit.
Right.
Dead. Dead. Dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty blatant picture
Yeah.
of what these people are, and he summarizes it in verse 19. He says, "It is these who cause divisions, worldly people, devoid of the Spirit." That's
the difference.
That's that foundation, right?
Yeah.
They're devoid of it. And so what he's challenging us to do is, we talked about this, and that is to develop discretion.
Right. What do you
Right.
mean by that exactly?
Well, discretion, the one definition that I found for this word that I really liked, it said the freedom to decide what should be done in a particular situation.
Hmm.
And this is first of all, we have to then develop the freedom. It's not freedom that we have to attain. We're told in Romans that sin no longer has any power or mastery over us.
For a born again Christ follower, they have freedom.
Right, but that's who. Remember, that's who Jude's talking to.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is for those people that are rooted in Scripture, are rooted in the Spirit, and are rooted in the ways of Christ. And when that's what they're rooted in, we have that freedom. We don't have to attain it. That freedom's been
Gifted.
granted to
Yeah.
us, right? So, but we have to develop that in our lives, because sometimes we act like we're trapped.
Yeah.
Like, I have no choice. No, you literally have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's the freedom that's been given to you.
Yeah.
And so in every situation that we come into, with every single message that comes into our ears, into our minds, we have the freedom to choose what to do in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that is lording over us other than Christ. So even he says, well, you can choose to either follow that path or not follow that path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, understand, and I heard this, I was talking to a friend this week, and he says, what's really interesting is the more decisions you make rooted in the Spirit to follow the way God wants you to do, the better your life actually goes.
How about that?
And I said, really, there's a lot of people that I know are Christians that they're really up against it. And they're no fault of their own, right? There's no, someone's been diagnosed. I was just talking to a friend yesterday that they're talking about dealing with Parkinson's in their family. Like, they didn't go out and go, oh, I choose Parkinson's, or there was some choice that said, all right, I'm going to do this so that I can get Parkinson's. So, and they're like, so is that person, their life's not going great for them. You talk to them and they have a radically different deal. They're saying, she even told me, she says, the more we go into this, the closer we get to Christ. And so I think sometimes when we make bad decisions, we generally follow it up with another bad decision, and then we follow it up with another bad decision.
Yeah.
And now what we're dealing with is not only the sinful world that we live in, right? The sin-broken world that has death and decay in it. But now, not only are we dealing with that, Parkinson's, but on top of it, we compound that with our own bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So now, instead of battling just trying to navigate this, we're now trying to navigate two.
Yeah.
And it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm double teamed. Well, you are.
Yep.
Because you're literally making, we always make bad decisions, right? I mean, that's just part of life, is we're going to make a bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
But what do we do after that decision? Do we say, hey, that was a bad decision. I made a mistake. Now let me make a good decision. Let me make a decision that is rooted in Scripture. What would God have me do? Not what would all these other things have me do.
operating in that way takes a lot of humility and a lot of maturity, a lot of emotional maturity and growth. To get outside of yourself after a bad decision, instead of doubling down as most people do,
Mm-hmm.
right? To actually be like, oops, I need to have a honest self-assessment here and follow this up with wisdom and go, okay, well, God, I'm asking you for wisdom now, and I admit that I made. There has to be an admission, right?
Yeah, for sure. The simplest thing's the hardest thing,
Yeah,
right?
man.
It's simple to say, oh, well, I'm back when I was younger. I got myself into a bit of trouble, and I made a bad decision. As it said here, rooted in the flesh, that sensuality test that we had a few weeks ago, the
Mm-hmm.
message of sensuality
Mm-hmm.
versus the message of the spirit. Am I going to follow the flesh or follow the spirit? I made a decision. I followed the flesh.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the midst of the ramifications and I'm forced with another decision, right? What am I going to do? And I had a counselor say to me, don't add onto one bad decision with another bad decision.
Right.
Now just acknowledge it and move forward. Well, that is super simple to do, to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly difficult to do
Yeah.
because you're right. All of a sudden, you got to deal with, I screwed up.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you, when I was 17 at the time, guess what? I was blaming God because you know what? He should have protected me in that. Now I look back and I can see God up there going, you decide to do this, and you now want me to what?
Right.
This was your decision. You knew better.
Oh, it is that sinful nature that is just so inherent within humans that keeps us chained down to the bondage or to these pitfalls that we constantly fall into even after being freed from them from Christ. I'm reminded of elephants, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they train these elephants with these huge chains going into stakes in the ground and so on and so forth, but it's a 2 ton plus elephant, right? And as a baby, they do this with the chain, and it's, I don't know, 500 pounds at that point.
Right.
Who knows, really? But then as they grow into mammoth sized
Right.
elephants, that little chain is not going to hold him down anymore. But he's just so used to being burdened and chained down, literally a slave to that hook in the ground, that even if just having the collar on is enough to be like, I can't go
Right.
anywhere. I'm
Yeah,
stuck.
you
I'm
don't even
trapped.
need the chain anymore.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that weird? And
But
like,
we're the same way.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
So hard. It's, what do
And
we
so,
do?
well, yeah, and so to develop this discretion, how do we do the right thing, right? How do we operate in the freedom to do the right thing in any situation? And the right thing would be make a decision or operate in according to Scripture. Why do you? Jesus says, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and then not do what I say to do?"
Yeah.
Right? Really step back and say, "Okay, God, what would you have me do?"
Yeah.
Right? What are you teaching me in this?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's some things that we can do to help develop that. One is put yourself in community with people that are also trying to do the same thing.
That's good. Community.
I remember I spent a lot of time as a youth pastor before being a lead pastor, and one of the blessings was I was always young, right? Because for the bulk of my career as a youth pastor, my kids were in elementary school. So I'm working with families that were 1 or 2 or 3 stages of life ahead of me. So people that
Right.
have high school students, but they all have college brothers and sisters and all that stuff,
Right.
right? So what was awesome about that, just being in there, is I could observe their decision-making process.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a few that allowed me in so I could ask questions. So why did you decide to do that? Or how about, what did you do here? Help me
Yeah.
understand this and whatever. And because I had that community, man, I learned so much
Right.
because these were people that were also trying to operate according to what God's asking them to do, with the
Biblical
belief
principles.
that
Yeah.
He's not trying to steal life from you. He's actually trying to give life to you. And if you operate this way, your life will go better for you and for your families. Train a child in the way he should go, and when he gets old, he will not depart from it.
Right.
All these these qualities about what the Bible's trying to teach us, what Jesus says, I come that they may have life and life abundant. That's what it promises, and that's what it delivers when you practice it. So when I see people practicing it and I surround myself with them and I come under them and learn from them, guess what? Things actually went better.
How about that? Yeah. And you're right about that community thing, the fellowship thing. It's a biblical principle, and it's something that is encouraged within the Bible, of course. That's why church exists, really, is to be the body and to be the hands and the feet of Christ. Have you heard that phraseology of you're going to be pretty much like, you're going to be some collaboration of your 7 closest friends, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So recently I saw a video clip of this 17-year-old who was being charged for murder, and he made a bad choice, right? And he was obviously in cahoots or with friends with some pretty bad people. And if his community or if his fellowship group was somebody operating under biblical principles, he would see, okay, I can look at the fruit of what happens through the choices made down this particular pathway, this journey that I could be going on. I see what my friends have done. I see the outcome of that. These guys are in prison. These guys are in jail. Obviously, the fruit's not very good fruit over here.
Right.
But if he was in a community that was developing, and it was iron sharpening iron, and growth and biblical principles and so on like that, well, he could see something very different, and they could come alongside, say, we're practicing some discretion. You're not quite living out the way that you know how to live. Let's shift some things here, and let's challenge each other and grow in these ways.
Right.
It would be a very different story for that kid.
Yeah, and if we're honest, for most of us, you've taken kind of an extreme view. Like, most of us haven't been convicted of murder, right? But the principle is the same. What is the message that we're surrounding ourselves with? Are we in community with people that are fighting for the same thing, fighting in the same direction? Or do we compartmentalize? Well, we got church over here, we got our friends over here, no, it's are we operating in a way, are we surrounding ourselves with people that are trying to live their lives the way God has laid out?
Yeah.
Not because he's trying to hold things from them, as Satan likes to tell us. That's Genesis 3. He knows that you'll be a God just like him. He's holding back from you. Or do we really believe that he wants us to have the best life possible?
Yeah.
Life abundant.
Yep. You're right. This past Friday night, I keep pulling up little stories, but this past Friday night was Sounds of the City, actually. And so we were all, a number of churches gathered together, and we were at a specific church doing some prayer time before the event was happening. And one of the prayers was, God, you know the concerns of our hearts, and you know the desires that we have. You know the areas of our lives that we're wanting this to be different, or this, that, and the other. But ultimately, thank you, God, for giving us what you will for our lives, what you know is best and most wise for our lives, and not what we are desiring or wanting all the times, because we often don't really know exactly what that outcome will be when we want those things.
Right, which, hey, we just talked about how to develop discernment, right? So now you bring up another way. It's probably to evaluate our prayer life. Oftentimes, I know for me, I come to a prayer setting and I give God my to-do list, right? Like, here's what I need you to do for me and for the people around me. I need you to heal this. I need you to provide this. I need you to What if we simply changed our prayer life and say, all right, God, what do you need me to hear today?
Yeah.
What do you have for me today? And what is your will? That's what Jesus said, right?
Yeah.
Thy will be done.
Right.
So, all right, what is your will for me today? What do you have for me today? How would you have me operate in this situation? How would you have me interact with this person that's really ticking me off? How would you have me do that? And pray that prayer.
Very good. Yeah. So if you guys are just tuning in, once again, we're talking about developing discernment here. And our step 1 was to be in a community that actually is operating under biblical principles with that as their goal and their mindset. How do you know that? Well, you can look at the fruit of what this community is doing, and hopefully that's within a church or something. And then the second step you said was to evaluate your prayer life and to really be intentional about listening to God.
Right, for sure. And then we're told Jesus in the upper room, he right before he's to be betrayed, he gives a little, this is what's coming. I'm going to send you the helper. And one of the jobs or one of the roles of the helper is to lead you and to teach you into all truth.
Yeah.
So if you're praying, God, what do you have for me? I guarantee you when you pray that prayer and then you start reading his scripture, it's going to take on a whole new deal. I was talking to someone on Sunday about what they're doing. They said, oh, yeah, I'm in Hebrews, and I'm 2 years or 18 months into my read through the Bible in a year.
Okay, yeah. That's pretty common.
Right. And this person said, I'm just like, I'm not getting frustrated and I'm not getting derailed when I miss a day or whatever. I'm just trying to plow through.
Yep.
And she was talking about the Hall of Faith in Hebrews 11 and just how that's ringing to her. Well, that can only speak to you when you're saying, God, what do you have to speak to me?
Yeah,
When you're coming in and going, all right, I just need to read 2 chapters a day, got it done. But hey, God, I'm coming here. What do you have for me? What do I need to hear today?
You're absolutely right. I'll be honest. I've approached the Bible in different scenarios like that with both of those mindsets, right? There are times when I've gotten into the Bible and said, okay, I'm studying this particular section, or I'm going to scribe out this particular section, and it's a dutiful task, right? And there's wonder in that as well, and there's great things to be gained from that over time, and just the recognition and remembrance of passages and so on and so forth. But it is a very different circumstance to go in it with a prayerful mindset of, God, your word is active and alive, and what is it that you are trying to tell me to work in me today? Yeah,
Right.
very, very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think those are things that we can do. Put ourselves in a community where people are trying to operate the same way. Evaluate our prayer life. Are we just bringing to God our wants, our needs, our desires, the to-do list we have for him, the God-do list, right? We have a honey-do list, the God-do list, right? And then are we asking him to reveal to us through his word? Are we reading the word like he's writing this to us, or are we just reading this as something to be studied or to be accomplished or something like that? I think if we even just start there, those 3 simple things, it would radically change the way we operate in this world.
I like that. Very good. Yeah. Is there anything else, any other trinkets of wisdom that you might leave us with today?
Oh my gosh, a lot.
Right. Who could we talk about?
Let me see.
No,
There's
that's
a
so
whole
funny.
bunch. There's
Yeah. Well, the good news is this coming weekend, though, we have a sermon that is titled A Proactive Response. And this coming Sunday, well, we're getting into Memorial Day, which I believe is Monday, right?
Yes.
So we'll be honoring that this coming Sunday as well. We've got a little video clip. But this coming Sunday, it's a call to persevere in the faith, a call to remember these things that we've been taught. Let's live into that. But yeah, I kind of cut you off. Was there any trinket that you wanted to share?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Hey, wonderful. Of course. Well, good stuff. Man, I think there is one more thing that I do want to say here. And
Okay.
this is tough because we're talking about steps on practicing perception and developing discretion. But one thing that I felt like was so important that you mentioned this past Sunday in particular, and I do want to take the time to get into this a little bit, is that you mentioned people tend to think that they're avoiding conflict.
Right.
I think this was kind of a big thing that you mentioned. However, the actual thing that they're avoiding is resolving that conflict.
Right.
We're in the conflict. We feel the tension of the conflict, regardless of how much we try to, quote unquote, avoid the conflict.
Right.
We are recognizing that there's conflict by saying that there's something to avoid. We're in it. Right. So that's by its nature. So the actual thing is the resolving the conflict. That's the hard part about it. And so, man, the step one that you said is go to the person when you're feeling this conflict. If this person is a false teacher or whatever else like that, maybe instead of just being like, okay, hands off and you do whatever you're going to do, maybe a loving thing is to talk to that person. Maybe that takes a lot of humility as well, because when you go to resolve that conflict, you're acknowledging, I need to work in something in myself too.
Right.
So the step one you said is going to the person.
Yeah. In Matthew 18, Jesus talks about how to deal with a brother that's offended you, right?
Yeah.
And the first step is to go to that person. It's super simple. Again, simple to say, perhaps the hardest thing to do. And one of the reasons is, Jesus also talks about the speck. Don't look at the speck in your brother's eye unless you look at the plank in your eye. So to resolve conflict, very often once you enter into it, the thing that's so scary is I'm probably going to have to confront something in me. I'm probably going to have to confront something that's here. That old
Yeah.
adage, when you point a finger at somebody else, there's three more pointing back at you. We don't want to deal with those three fingers, so we just kind of go like this, right?
Yeah.
Like point this way.
Yeah.
It's easier to cast the blame out there on somebody else.
Right.
But when you enter into resolving the conflict, and if you enter in saying, hey, help me understand what's going on. Help me understand why this is happening. Help me understand why I heard this, or why you said this, or whatever. Maybe what happened is you perceived it incorrectly. Maybe you took it wrong. Or maybe you took it right, but the reason there's conflict is, oh my gosh, I'm being convicted because that's really me. And I think there's that fear that I'm going to have to confront myself. And so it's easier to keep it out here where it's everybody else's problem. And it's much more difficult to bring it in here where every conflict has two people.
Yeah.
Right. So that means there's two stories. That means there's two sides to the story. That means there's two views of what happened. When I can say that they're wrong, then it's all their fault. And I don't have to deal with me. When I bring that conflict closer, they might say, well, yeah, this is why. And now I have to deal with maybe there's something in here that's not right.
Oh, underlying all of this, I feel like that we've talked about today is really just the sense of a need for growth, a need for maturity, emotional intelligence. We talk about EQ quite often here. And to be aware and, aware or perceiving of what the fruit is of whatever the situation is, right? So that's really kind of this like collective thing. If you have a conflict, okay, what's the fruit and how do I approach this and what will the fruit of that be?
Yeah, if the fruit of conflict is, it's always what he says. It's divisions.
Yeah.
Right. It's
enmity.
Right. That's what happens. It's and how many people they have broken relationships. I heard today in a meeting that there are people that like, well, yeah, this person hasn't talked to this person for 20 years. I'm like, what? 20 years?
Yeah.
Just press in and try to, if both parties were wanting to deal with it and solve it or resolve it, so to speak, and be humble about that, then the divisions don't happen. And in the church, you see a lot of this. Something will go wrong. I think I said this Sunday, look, you don't have to be here very long before you get frustrated with me. It's just the way it is, right? You know better than others because we work together. You're like, oh, God, it frustrates the crap out of me. But, in most people, what happens is they grumble. They become nitpickers, right? They malcontents is what Jude says, and they kind of grumble, and then what do? They just leave.
Yeah.
They just leave. Well, if they'd come and they talk to me or you or anybody else and perhaps resolve that, now there's a better understanding of themselves. There's a better understanding of the other person, of the situation. And any time that you solve a conflict, anytime my wife and we solve a conflict, our relationship actually gets deeper, not shallower.
Yes.
Right? We get closer, not more divided.
Right.
So if you think about it, what Satan wants is division. What the opposer wants is disunity. So he's going to make you believe all of these things are going to happen. All these negative things are going to happen if you approach somebody about a problem. And he's going to put this fear in you so that you keep it out here. When God says, no, just do the simple thing and bring it in. It's very hard, but do it. And I guarantee you your life will go better. Because I want to give you the abundant life. And you're absolutely right. Hebrews 6:1 says, let us leave the elementary teachings of Christ behind and be moved on toward maturity.
Yeah. Very good. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for all of this. I appreciate our conversations on a weekly basis. It's so good. It gives me it gives me the chance on Sunday mornings when you ask about, hey, do you guys remember what I talked about last week or the week before? I could be like, yeah, I know.
I know. You always answer and you let people off the hook.
I guess I do.
You have to start giving out stars.
Yeah, right. I love it.
Andy gets 2 stars today.
No. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope you guys enjoyed it and received something interesting and fun from this podcast. Absolutely. Yeah, write in as well. Let us know what you guys would like us to chat about, or if you have any questions about anything that is mentioned on a Sunday service.
Yeah, we would love to answer your questions.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
thank you so much once again. Have a great rest of your day. Take care,
Happy
everybody.
Memorial Day.